Hello, my name is Stuart Soroka. I'm a professor in the Department of Communication and Media and the Department of Political Science here at the University of Michigan. I'm making this video to talk a little bit about some past work that I've done with Dominik Stecula, who's currently at Penn, soon to be at Colorado State, and Christopher Wlezien, who's at the University of Texas at Austin. The paper is called "It's Change in the Future Economy, Stupid: Economic Indicators, the Media, and Public Opinion." The piece was published in the American Journal of Political Science in 2015. The title of the paper is drawn from a quote attributed to James Carville. "It's the economy, stupid." Carville was an advisor for the Clinton campaign in 1992, and one of the emphases of that campaign was on the state of the economy. Work following that election made clear that people's attitudes, their perceptions about the economy, were critical in the decision to vote for Clinton over Bush. And in fact, there is a very large body of work that makes clear that economic attitudes, economic perceptions, are critical to citizens' preferences about policy, and citizens' attitudes about governments, citizens' assessments of governments. There's lots of work that suggests that the state of the economy can be used to predict electoral outcomes, for instance. Lots of work that suggests the state of the economy is critical to people's attitudes about spending on welfare or on defense or on healthcare. There also is work suggesting that it's not necessarily the state of the economy that matters so much as perceptions of the state of the economy. And that's really critical background to the paper that I want to talk about today. There are at least two different ways in which media coverage of the state of the economy might be central. One is that for most of us, we don't experience the national economy directly. We experience a small part of that national economy, the part that affects us. But our sense of the national economy is some combination of our own personal experience and the experience of others we know, and the experience that we get through the media, the information that we get about the state of the national economy in media. So even when media are perfectly accurate, they are central to our understanding of the state of the economy. The media are the mechanism through which we learn about the national economy, which ends up then being critical to our assessment of governments and our attitudes about policies. But media are not always perfectly accurate. There may be systematic biases in the way in which media report the economy, and that makes the significance of media even more interesting. If our assessments of policies and governments are driven by our beliefs about the state of the economy, and our beliefs about the state of the economy are driven by media coverage of that economy, then understanding the nature and scope of media coverage becomes really critical. We're going to use three different bodies of data to explore the relationship between media coverage, the state of the economy, and public opinion. We're going to capture the state of the economy by using leading, concurrent, and lagging indicators series from the Conference Board. And these are overall measures that capture a range of different aspects of the state of the economy. For media coverage, we're going to use all content on the economy from the New York Times and the Washington Post, drawn from LexisNexis and coded for sentiment using the Lexicoder Sentiment Dictionary. The sentiment coding in this case involves counting up a series of positive words and a series of negative words. The dictionary includes about 3,000 of each, and then using a net measure, which is the number of positive words minus the number of negative words divided by the total number of words. That's a kind of automated way of capturing the extent to which the article includes more positive words or more negative words. We're going to look at the volume of coverage, and we're going to look at the sentiment of that coverage. And in the graphic you're looking at right now, you'll note that every time there's a spike in volume, that tends to be preceded by a decrease in tone. That's an indication of the tendency for media to focus on negative content rather than positive content. It's when the economy is doing poorly that there tend to be spikes in economic coverage. That's not the focus of what we're looking at. Right now, however, we're going to look at the tone and volume as a function of these indicators of the economy, and then we're going to connect it to public opinion, which in this case is based on a consumer sentiment series from the Michigan Survey of Consumers. Now, the paper runs through a number of time series diagnostics and then time series analyses to explore the relationships between media, public opinion, and the economy. I don't want to go through each of those regression tables here, but I do want to talk about the kind of general findings from those tables. And those general findings are threefold. First, we find that the volume and tone of media coverage is more strongly related to leading indicators of the economy than to concurrent or lagging indicators of the economy. That is to say, to the extent that media coverage follows the economy, it seems to be following where we believe the economy is going to go more than where we believe the economy has been. Second, the volume and tone of media coverage responds more to changes in the state of the economy than to levels of the state of the economy. I'm going to talk about that more in a moment. And finally, there is a bi-directional relationship between media coverage of the economy and public perceptions of the economy, where public perceptions partly find their way into media coverage, and also public perceptions are driven by a combination of the actual state of the economy and media coverage of the economy. The graphic you're looking at right now shows net tone in media coverage as a dark black line just preceding and then following the 2008-2009 recession. The top panel shows leading indicators, the state of the economy, in levels over that time period. And the relationship between those two series is weak. If anything, it looks like leading indicators are kind of lagging behind the tone of media coverage. The correlation between the two series in that top panel is 0.22. But if what we do is represent the economy not in levels, but as month-to-month changes in the economy, to what extent did leading indicators increase or decrease in this month relative to the preceding month? If what we do is graph the economy that way, we see what's in the bottom panel here, and then you have a very strong relationship between the two series. The correlation is 0.57 in this case. That's a nice illustration, I hope, of the tendency for media coverage to capture month-to-month changes in the state of the economy rather than overall levels of the economy. And that has important implications for the way in which the public is going to perceive the economy and the way in which the public is going to use the economy to make assessments of policies and of governments. Now, I don't think that any of these findings should be especially surprising. Most of us, when we go to media, are looking for information about things that are coming up, things that are useful in our daily lives, kind of signals of problems, in this case in the state of the economy. And so it makes sense that media are forward rather than backward looking. It makes sense that media coverage follows changes in the state of the economy rather than levels as well. Change in the economy is a new piece of information, it's news. Systematically high levels of unemployment are important and are going to get a lot of coverage when they first occur, but eventually we're going to see less coverage over time until there is some kind of change in the state of unemployment. Now, these are not uniquely American findings. In subsequent work published in Social Science Quarterly, Chris and Dom and myself found similar findings in Canada, the US, and the UK. In every case, media tended to focus on the future economy rather than the current or the past economy, and tended to focus on change in that economy rather than levels of the economy. In all three countries, it also appeared to be the case that there was this reciprocal relationship between public sentiment and media coverage of the economy. Public sentiment is affected by media coverage. Also, media coverage is affected in part by public sentiment. This makes sense, of course. The polls that we're using in order to gauge public sentiment about the economy are polls that are reported on in media, for instance. All of this matters to the ways in which we understand the impact of the economy on public sentiment and the impact of the economy on public attitudes about policy and governments as well. It means that to the extent that people learn about the economy from media, they're going to be judging governments, for instance, on where the economy is and where it is going, and on change in that economy more than levels in that economy. There's reason to think that this dynamic is not exclusive to the economy as well. In ongoing work, Chris and I are finding that media coverage of public policy also is forward rather than current and backward looking. So our assessments of government policies, in addition to our assessments of the economy and perhaps many other things, are focused on change in future conditions, at least insofar as our understanding of the world is conditioned by media coverage. Media coverage, which, as I hope we've demonstrated here, tends to be forward-looking and change-oriented.